Please feel free to adjust the playback speed to 1.25 or 1.5 depending on your preference.
Jin-Woo calmly made his reply. When I came to, my leg had been all healed up. Even I'm not sure what happened to me. Song Chi-yeol nodded his head. Ever since Gates appeared for the first time 10 years ago, many illogical things continued to transpire to this day. The people called hunters who had awakened their abilities were a prime example of this. A healer ranked S could reputedly heal a person who was ripped to shreds back to normal, as long as the victim was still alive. What if a high-ranking healer healed Jin-Woo's injuries while he was unconscious? If that was the case, then his severed leg being reattached didn't even qualify as a miracle. It'd do no good to see a young man such as yourself become disabled like that. What a relief this is. What a relief. Song Chi-yeol lightly patted his chest as if a big weight of his had been lifted off his shoulders now. It was then, Jin-Woo's gaze drifted toward Song Chi-yeol's left arm. The older man's sleeve was empty. Song Chi-yeol chuckled and massaged his left shoulder. Don't you worry about it. A hunter getting injured during a raid is a normal occurrence, after all. No, I've been lucky for not running into an accident until then. The two men arrived at the meeting place. The gate had formed in the middle of the road pretty close to residential areas, so the police officers called in to control the access to the location. However, there were almost no onlookers present here, to begin with. The majority of gates the association took on were those dangerous ones that had been left alone for too long after their initial discovery. Besides, even if one were to stick around a gate, one would still not get to see how hunters fought, anyway. It was only a couple of curious, naughty kids loitering around who got chased away by the officers every now and then. With a thud, the door to the taxi was closed shut. Jin-Woo and Song Chi-yeol had exited from the taxi and made their way towards the location where the other hunters had been gathered. There were other hunters who had arrived earlier who were standing near the gate. Well, there were only 2 other hunters there, however. The number of those willing to come had decreased sharply after that huge incident. Jin-Woo heard from Song Chi-yeol on their way here that, besides those who died, many other hunters decided to quit this life from the shock of that underground temple incident. One of them happens to be Miss Ju-hui. Jin-Woo took a look around, but he couldn't see her. When Jin-Woo and Song Chi-yeol approached closer, the 2 hunters awkwardly averted their gazes. Jin-Woo narrowed his eyes. But, of course. These 2 happened to be Kim Sang-sik, who ran off trying to save only himself, and the other male hunter who had discarded the injured Jin-Woo. Of course, they would find it rather awkward to face him. Excuse me, Mr. Song. Kim Sang-sik was thinking of at least greeting the youth, but when he was subjected to Jin-Woo's cold glare, he eventually shifted his gaze away. Kim Sang-sik shut his mouth, studied the mood for a bit, before shuffling further away from there. He stopped at a bit of distance away and sneaked a glance at Jin-Woo, before he tilted his head in confusion. Is he really the Song Jin-Woo that I know? I mean, his eyes are as fierce as a monster, man. Like a real monster. Kim Sang-sik shuddered deeply. As he thought, his arm was covered in goosebumps. Jin-Woo withdrew his glare filled with hostilities. Thankfully, quite unlike Yu Jin-ho, Kim Sang-sik was quick on the uptake. After locking eyes once, he didn't even try to come near Jin-Woo's vicinity. He sincerely hoped that this arrangement would remain for the rest of the raid. Mr. Song. Song Chi-yeol, standing next to Jin-Woo, shifted his gaze in a direction and smiled gently. There she is. Jin-Woo also turned his head in the direction Song Chi-yeol was looking at. But, before he had the chance to completely turn around to look, Mr. Jin-Woo. Something rather soft suddenly hugged him tightly. Miss Ju-hui? While Jin-Woo was getting flustered, Ju-hui was too busy making sure he was fine with a tearful face. Are you alright? You are not hurt anywhere, right? Your leg? Mr. Jin-Woo, how come your leg is? Ju-hui's eyes went extra round as she alternated her gaze between his face and his leg. There was a bit of difference in how extreme it was, but nevertheless, her reaction was more or less the same with Song Chi-yeol's. Oh, that. Just as Jin-Woo was about to reply. How steamy, eh? It's steamy, I say. Both the gazes of Jin-Woo and Ju-hui shifted over in the direction of that voice. From afar, an unknown man was whistling loudly at them. More importantly, though, he was wearing the orange-colored prison overall. Is there a film shoot going on around nearby or something? While Jin-Woo was tilting his head in confusion, a man wearing a business suit climbed down from the front seat of a certain minivan. He then threw out a measured warning at the prison overall guy. Shut your mouth. The prison overall guy pretended to not know anything by staring at the distance. However, he quickly threw an oily wink at Ju-hui when the business suit looked back inside the van. Immediately, Jin-Woo's expression crumpled. 2 more people climbed out of the van right away. Both of them were men. And particularly worthy of note was the fact that they all wore prison overalls and had been cuffed as well. The business suit led the 3 prison overalls towards the association's employee. And she welcomed him with a bright expression. "You've finally arrived. Please forgive us for our tardiness. There was traffic on the road." The business suit then proceeded to sign on each of the documents the association employee presented to him. In the meantime, the employee called for the hunters to gather around. "These folks are the replacement convicts who will participate in the raid alongside you, hunters." And so, the expressions of the hunters hardened considerably. Kim Sang-sik was the first to step forward. "What? Replacement convicts? Are you telling us to go on a raid along with a bunch of criminals?" Hunters who had committed crimes had 2 choices. Either spend their allotted time behind the bars, or cooperate with the association and reduce their sentences. Most chose the latter option, and they were referred to as the replacement convicts. The association employee repeatedly lowered her head. "I'm really sorry about this. It's only because the number of hunters active in our district has declined so much that the association has no choice but to do this. However, they will be accompanied by a hunter from the monitoring division, so you don't have to worry too much." Kim Sang-sik asked, still full of suspicion. "A hunter from the monitoring division, you say?" "Yes. All the convicts are rank CS, but the hunter from the monitoring division is actually a rank B, so there is nothing for you to worry about." Kim Sang-sik nodded his head. The popular opinion stated that you'd need around 10 C-rank hunters in order to contend against a single hunter ranked B. Well, a B rank was personally coming to monitor the troublemakers, not to mention participating in the raid itself, so there was no reason to say no here. 1 rank B and 3 rank CS, huh? Jin-Woo quietly studied the faces of the monitoring division's agent as well as the 3 replacement convicts, before tilting his head slightly. Something's off here. He could sense a minute trace of murderous intent flowing between those 4. Was this also one of the facets of the enhanced perception stat? Or was he simply being overly cautious? In any case, he was overcome with this unexplainable anxiety all of a sudden. So, Jin-Woo whispered in Ju-Hui's ear. "Miss Ju-Hui, please don't participate in this raid." Ju-Hui looked up at Jin-Woo's eyes and asked back. "What about you, Mr. Jin-Woo?" Rather than answering her, he too asked back. "If I say I'll be going? Well, in that case, I'm going too." She looked like she'd follow him, no matter what. "I'm sure she's only doing this because she's concerned about me." And, he learned through prior experience that, whenever Ju-Hui's face was forming that expression, she'd suddenly become a very stubborn young lady and she'd never change her mind, no matter what. There shouldn't be a problem with me around, right? After all, he had experience dealing with Hwang Dong-suk's gang, which contained 5 rank CS in their midst. Jin-Woo nodded his head. "In that case, okay." The agent from the monitoring division finished signing on all of the documents, and then came to speak to the gathered hunters. "My name is Kang Tae-sik from the monitoring division. I believe you've been informed of the situation. I'll keep a very close eye on those 3, so you can rest easy." Kang Tae-sik then beckoned the 3 convicts to come closer. They all trudged towards him and presented their hands. With a practiced hand of his own, Kang Tae-sik swiftly undid their cuffs. "Wowzers. I thought I was going to die from the stuffiness just now. We aren't even slaves, so isn't it against our rights for you to drag us around here and there like this?" The convicts massaged their freed wrists and continued to pile on their complaints. Kang Tae-sik roundly ignored them and returned his gaze back to the hunters. "Who will be taking the lead today?" Song Chi-yeol, having led raids before, raised his hand about halfway up. Kang Tae-sik nodded his head. "Understood." With Song Chi-yeol in the lead, hunters entered the gate one by one. "Let's get going as well." Jin-Woo and Ju-Hui also entered the gate, albeit at the same time. Perhaps the trauma from the last incident remained with her, because she ever so slightly held onto Jin-Woo's sleeve. Goblins were the main enemies for this dungeon. They were the weakest of all man-type monsters out there. So, clearing the dungeon itself wasn't hard at all. These strange-looking creatures were weak enough for Jin-Woo to fight evenly one-on-one even before he got his power boost. Still, Jin-Woo did his utmost best to carefully hunt goblins with his bare hands. When Jin-Woo displayed the combat prowess that easily exceeded their imaginations, both Ju-Hui and Song Chi-yeol's eyes became extra round in surprise. Wow! He was hiding most of his true power, yet the result of each fight was still remarkably different compared to the past. Ju-Hui approached him and carefully asked him, "Have you been working out lately?" "Well, I've been jogging every day." "Jogging?" Ju-Hui tilted her head, but well, he wasn't technically lying here, so. "But besides all that, I'm not earning any experience points here. The enemy's level is too low, and your experience points did not rise." Jin-Woo formed a disappointed expression. The message of goblins being too weak and him not getting any experience points kept repeating itself. This isn't going to work. On top of this, the magic crystals from the goblins were also the worst grade there could be. Jin-Woo took a look around him. The C-ranked convicts must have been really excited by the taste of freedom because they were wildly swinging their weapons and energetically ripped goblins to shreds. From that scene alone, it was difficult to tell apart just who were the monsters and who were the humans there. I guess there's no reason for me to break a sweat today. Well, he wasn't earning any experience points, nor was he making lots of money today, either. A certain thought popped up in his head next. If it's going to be like this from now on, wouldn't it be better to quit the association? Pretty much the majority of jobs coming to the association's way were clearing the gates ranked D and E. However, if his level wasn't going to increase from entering those types of gates, then there was no need to participate in association's raids anymore. I can easily earn mom's hospital fees by myself now, too. He could quit the association at any time he felt like it. This was why having money was always for the better. As soon as he had some, his selection had widened. While thinking of this and that, the raid team entered deeper into the dungeon. And soon, a forked road with 3 paths appeared before them. Kang Tae-sik made a suggestion to Song Chi-yeol. Since the difficulty of the dungeon is low, how about splitting up from here onwards? Yes, let's do that. Song Chi-yeol readily agreed to that idea. Jin-Woo closed his eyes and extended his perception to the max. Now, which path leads to the boss? He was hoping that maybe the boss would give him a few experience points, at the very least. Soon enough, he could pick up on the auras of all living creatures inside the dungeon. Jin-Woo opened his eyes and spoke to Song Chi-yeol. Ajusi, let's go left. Okay. Jin-Woo, Song Chi-yeol, and Ju-hui chose the left pathway, Kang Tae-sik and the 3 convicts the right one, and the remaining 2 went down the middle one. Jin-Woo's heart began beating a little bit faster. The boss is at the end of this passage. Although it couldn't be described as strong, a unique and different aura from that of a goblin was leaking out from the end of this cavern-like passageway. He wanted to quickly kill the boss. Out of the blue, screams reverberated throughout the dungeon from somewhere, one after the other. Those weren't from the goblins. No, they definitely belonged to humans. Jin-Woo, Song Chi-yeol, and Lee Ju-hui exchanged glances. They thought the things had calmed down, only for yet another desperate scream to enter their ears. Song Chi-yeol's expression hardened. Let's go take a look. The 3 of them quickly ran to where the screams came from. Jin-Woo could have run faster than his 2 companions, but for the sake of their safety, matched their speeds. Just how long did they have to run? Ju-hui cried out in alarm after finding a person. There's a person there. And it just so happened to be the hunter from the monitoring division, Kang Tae-sik. He was kneeling on the ground, covered completely in blood. Kang Tae-sik shouted out at them. Be careful. I don't know where they could be right now. Kang Tae-sik spat those words out with great difficulty before collapsing on the ground in pain. Ju-hui couldn't watch on anymore and hurriedly ran towards Kang Tae-sik. Hold on, I'll heal you right now. Ju-hui was thinking like this, regardless of where the enemies were hiding, she was still a healer ranked B, meaning, the speed of her healing magic was very fast. So, she thought that before enemies attacked them, it'd be more advantageous for her to quickly heal Kang Tae-sik. Please hold on for a little while longer. Ju-hui stood in front of Kang Tae-sik and reached out with both of her hands. Gentle rays of light gathered near the ends of her hands. It happened then. Kang Tae-sik rapidly raised his upper body up and took aim at the center of Ju-hui's neck with his hand full of magical energy. Swish! Just before his fingertip could touch Ju-hui's Adam's apple, someone managed to grab Kang Tae-sik's wrist just in time. Snap! The stunned Ju-hui stumbled backwards before falling on her rear. Plop! Kang Tae-sik's expression became one of shocked amazement. He stopped my attack in that short space of time? It was not a hard job for a high-ranked hunter to deal with a handful of lower-ranked hunters. The only thorn in his side today happened to a female hunter ranked B, the same rank as he was. The silver lining about this thorn was that she was not a combat-related hunter. She didn't possess any abilities to protect herself, so as long as he succeeded in sneak attacking her, everything would end quite easily. However, to think, his sneak attack would end up missing. With things like this, there was no reward for all that great acting he had put on. Kang Tae-sik's gaze followed the hand grabbing his wrist and to its owner. And Jin-Woo's face was at the end. Jin-Woo's eyes were emitting a very strong light of murderous intent. Kang Tae-sik frowned deeply. How dare you, a fucking association bottom feeder. Swish! Kang Tae-sik's other fist flew towards Jin-Woo's face. However, Jin-Woo simply tilted his head out of the way and let the fist fly by. What? Kang Tae-sik hurriedly yanked his arm loose from Jin-Woo's grasp. Huh? Jin-Woo displayed his shock next. as expected from a high-ranked hunter and his power. Now that both of his hands were freed, Kang Tae-sik began pouring out attacks without a rest. However, Jin-Woo also moved at the speed that didn't lose out to Kang Tae-sik's and went on the offensive of his own, too. Fists and arms belonging two men endlessly collided and traded countless blows. None of them showed any signs of backing off. Seizing this opportunity, Song Chi-yeol quickly dragged Ju-hui away from the area. Ah, juicy. Ju-hui couldn't finish what she wanted to say because of the sheer shock from seeing what was happening right now. However, there was one person here who was even more shocked than Ju-hui, and that was none other than Song Chi-yeol. Just how on earth is this possible? This fierce battle unfolding at a scarcely believable speed he was having a hard time trying to follow with his eyes. Something like that was expected of a high-ranked hunter, so that was fine, but then, the Sung Jin-Woo fighting that man couldn't have been the same person from Song Chi-yeol's memories. The youth was definitely not losing out against a rank B hunter at all. I'm a C rank, and even I can't follow his movements with my eyes. Indeed, his gut feeling proved to be right. The Jin-Woo in front of his eyes right now was not the same youth from his memories, an E rank who was weak but possessing a good head on his shoulders. In the blink of an eye, the two traded hundreds of blows and they quickly stepped back while trying to catch their breaths. Jin-Woo glared at Kang Tae-sik and frowned. The blood on your clothes, I'm guessing it's not yours. Kang Tae-sik loosened his wrist and answered back. That's right, it belongs to those bastards. Besides all that, I never expected to run into a hunter of your caliber in this shitty place. Honestly speaking, Kang Tae-sik was really impressed. He hadn't heard of any information regarding a high-ranking hunter slumming it out along with those bottom feeders working for the association. This is going to cost me big time. He thought that today would be the best time to act, so he did his deeds, but quite unexpectedly, he ran into a pretty steep hurdle here. Kang Tae-sik couldn't control his curiosity and asked out aloud. Who the hell are you? What rank are you? Jin-Woo, grasping poison fang of Kasaka tightly in his hand, replied rather curtly. Sung Jin-Woo. I'm rank E.
We will finish this chapter here. Next chapter will be out soon, so stay tuned.